Are good leaders born, or are they made? What we know is that it takes all kinds of experiences to lead, especially in the social sector. Welcome to The Ripple Effect. I'm Caroline Broadhurst, Deputy Chief Exec at the Rank Foundation. In this series, I'll be speaking with leaders from across the UK, learning what led them to work in the social sector and what shaped them into the inspiring leaders they are today. Our first episode is a bit of a special one. I talked to not one, but two incredible leaders who also happen to be mentor and mentee to each other. Jordan Ignatius is the Managing Director of Reaching Higher, and his mentee Alfie Dance Laing is the sports lead at Reaching Higher. Reaching Higher challenges young people to be leaders of their own lives. It teaches young people the value of transferable skills and offers them the space to learn and develop in a safe and welcoming environment. In this episode, we talk about how their faith and passion for sports motivated them first to change their direction in life and then to become leaders in their community and the social sector. I wanted to know where it all began. What were they like as kids?
Growing up, I was a menace. I was rebellious. I was defiant. And I think it came from always wanting to challenge authority. So like growing up in school, I'd be asked to do certain things by my teachers and I'd always think, why am I doing it? And I kind of got myself in a conundrum where I would not do the thing and ask. And it always used to get me in a lot of trouble. Recently I've learned do the thing and then ask. You know what I mean? So you got to swap it around. But yeah, I was definitely very curious. And
Jordan, what were you like?
I think I like to think that I was a good kid, but I think I was really in search for a place of belonging, I think, from a young age. So not growing up with my dad, single parent background, different gaps I created. But I always learned that I loved people a lot, loved a bit of sport, loved cooking. So always had a vision or two in the locker, wanting to be like, own a clothes store, own a restaurant, be a basketball player, be a football player. But I think more often than not, I just wanted a place where I could just be myself when I was younger.
And where did you get that passion for helping young people? Where do you think that came from?
So my passion for supporting young people really came from seeing a lack of support in my local community and having a lack of mentors and guidance in my area, which led to just getting involved in things that just wasn't the best use of my time and didn't serve me well in the long term. So we then began, and I say we because it was me and a group of friends, just coordinating activities in the local area. So some of that was really simple, like playing football on the field or playing 40 for your home, so just having fun, but beginning to coordinate that across the community. And then what that did is it really galvanized a sense of togetherness, having fun in a safe way where when we saw the police, we were no longer anxious because we knew that actually we were just having fun, like innocently. And don't get me wrong, they might say, guys, stop kicking the ball in this area and stop doing that. But that was more kind of just, childlike things that would just happen in the community that I was a part of. So that was as young as 14, 15. And then as I started to get older, I was taking part in Reaching Higher activities. I transferred those coordination skills into projects in terms of, the volunteers and the leaders would say, oh, do you want to coordinate this football tournament? I said, yeah, look, great, I'll do that.
Alfie, you're also interested in sport, aren't you? Where did that interest come from?
I think it's the first place I felt like home, outside of my home. Traditional education was, I found a struggle. So when I'd leave and the weekend would come and I'd be able to play football, it was something that I was naturally quite good at. I felt it was a validation piece and yeah, it made me feel, as I said, comfortable at home. And I ended up growing in that space and understanding that maybe my skill set that I had at the time is better used in spaces of sport. So yeah, that's where the love grew, definitely.
You're both with Reaching Higher.
Yeah.
Jordan, can you tell us a little bit about Reaching Higher and what you do?
Sure. So Reaching Higher is a youth organisation that specialises in contextual youth work. So the organisation is split up into two. One aspect of it is around delivery. So making sure that we're delivering high quality services for children and young people. And the other half is around influence. How can we help and support other grassroots organisations, specifically in relation to the work that they're doing with young people? we have an approach which we call 360 pastoral care. So with the young person slap bang in the middle, we believe that the best way to impact children and young people is to have an insight into their school life, their community life and their home life. So whilst we know we can't control any of the three areas, we know we can influence all of them. So essentially Reaching Higher is designed to draw synergy between those three areas and then hopefully teach other organisations to draw synergy between those areas and within their own context.
Right. And you're also at Reaching Higher. How did you come across each other?
I love this story. I tell it all the time. So Jordan came into my secondary school at the time, delivered football sessions, and we done some trials, some training after school, and it just became like a hub of mixing between a space I'd already been validated in, which is sport, and then Reaching Higher coming in and validating me as a person as well. It felt like a perfect mix, and that's where it started. And then it's just grown ever since. Yeah,
it was a bit hard-headed as a young person, but had a lot of charisma, a lot to give. So, remember it like it was yesterday, to be honest. And his journey's been an incredible one. Some way it's really active, some way it's a bit distant. And then, again, that kind of full circle moment where he comes back and he's now in that position that I was in then with other young people.
Yeah, it's sort of like that cyclical nature, you know what I mean? You go to school, then leave, and you come back and now you're teaching. It was beautiful, and me and Jordan's dynamic grew from that. So as a mentor, as a friend, as a brother, as an uncle, as another father figure in my life. So there's been loads of different hats. It depends. Like as of now, we're speaking like a mentoring thing, and then maybe on the way back we might talk just football and we become friends.
And can you tell us about some of the projects that you're on at Reaching Higher?
So Alfie is our sports program lead. So we have sports provisions for young people that might entail of boxing, football, basketball, for example. We also have creative arts sessions where young people can really get into their creative bag. So that might be media related, it might be arts and crafts, it might be music. And then outside of that, we run youth innovation hubs for young people where young people can gather into safe spaces and explore their talents. We do one-to-one and small group mentoring, which is essentially it's providing young people with trusted adults in their community and in their educational spaces. And then we do a lot of social action where we provide young people with spaces to impact their local community. An example of that is at the moment they're designing the scope of a park that's about to be renovated in their local area. So we try to connect young people to things that they see on a day-to-day basis and include them as part of the solution, using Reaching Higher as their vessel, really, to manoeuvre through.
And you're based in Croydon,
We're based in Croydon, London Borough of Croydon. So all of our delivery is Croydon-centric. Hometown,
Tell us a bit about Croydon.
Croydon is really unique. So it's a really large borough. So to put it into context, Croydon as a borough is the same size as Leeds. Over 94,000 young people reside in Croydon. And with that come different challenges. And in recent years, Croydon has declared itself bankrupt a few times, which has placed more pressure on the borough. There's a lot of potential, there's a lot of hope within the borough, but equally there's a lot of challenge. And, what gets the media attention is the not so good stuff. And we want to shine a light on the good stuff that is happening in the borough, whilst tackling and working on those areas that need improvement.
So for you, what do you enjoy most about your work with Reaching Higher?
I think the biggest reward is being able to invest in more people that can go on and invest in more people. So whilst the services that we do I think are brilliant and we do our best to deliver them to such a high standard, measuring our impact in that isn't just kind of hitting funding outcomes. It's really about making sure that through these processes, people are being developed and they're becoming well-rounded individuals that can give back to their community in a different way. I think our team reflect that. So, we now have a team of 21, 22. Out of that, 70% of the team are former service users. And we've sustained that there or thereabouts, that number for over a decade. 90% of the team are from Croydon.
That's great.
So it's really helpful,
great. Yeah. And what do you enjoy most about work?
I think the thing I enjoy most about the work is planting the seed. So there's a thing about delayed gratification. I mean, you do the thing and you don't notice it for another 5, maybe 10 years. But then when you do, it's quite overwhelming. Yeah. So teaching young people or creating safe spaces for young people to be themselves, explore, learn new things, and seeing the effect that has later down the line.
Brilliant. Jordan, how would you describe Alfie's leadership skills and style?
Authentic. Alfie really leads with his heart, and I think that's one of his strengths. And one of the good things about leading with your heart is it's always authentic. So Alfie leads from a really pure place and really wants to make a difference because, in my opinion, he's been through it. He understands it. He's felt it. But I think what I love about Alfie's style of leadership is that there's a rawness to it, which is an honesty of, yeah, you know what, I'm trying to learn, so I'm going to give it a go. And he's not afraid to fail. And I think that's probably his strongest asset that will take him from strength to strength, which I have no doubt about.
Yeah. And how, that's really nice, isn't it?
Very nice.
Alfie?
Very nice.
Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Partly. Yeah, no, definitely. I'd like to agree with that. I like the idea of just being as kind of raw and authentic as I possibly can. Obviously, there's a flip side to it. Sometimes it can get you in trouble. But
So how did you develop that leadership style?
Through reaching higher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it links back to the point of what do I like about my work so much is, well, this is the place where I developed that skill set and was accepted in the first place to be myself. Because if I wasn't accepted in the first place, I probably wouldn't be like this now. I would have been just the person that kind of society had moulded me to be instead of what Reaching High had offered me to be.
And what would you like to build on?
I think Jordan mentioned it, of being able to translate the message. So you've got your ideas, you've got your way of doing things, you've got your standards of how you hold yourself, but how can you translate that and get the best out of other people? I heard a great analogy about sometimes like we're in a jungle, there's loads of different animals, completely different animals. You got monkeys, lions, crocodiles, sharks, everything. And sometimes we can tell them to climb a tree. Cool, the monkey's going to climb the tree. I mean, the lion might get halfway up, jaguar will get up there, but what's the crocodile going to do? It's stuck. So I think in my leadership, I'd like to be able to translate to every type of person. I guess it's so important to me that different people with different sort of understandings, different skill sets are acknowledged because, as I said, you could be looking at a genius.
How would you describe Jordan's leadership style?
No pressure.
Yeah, exceptional. And what I mean by that is there's a level of stoicism with Jordan. Like the world can be crushing around him and you wouldn't even know just because how he holds himself. But on the flip side to that, there's a level of authenticity where he's very honest about it and says, actually, this thing's going on at the moment and this is how it's affecting me, but I'm going to continue. I mean, things mess up sometimes. It can break you to pieces, or you can acknowledge the thing's gone wrong. Right, cool. What's my controllables? How can we move forward? How can I translate this to the team and be really authentic? I think, to summarise, Jordan's very good at just bringing people along the journey.
Great to hear, isn't it, Jordan?
Yeah, it's interesting hearing it through that lens. So, no, thank you, Alfie. That means a lot, man. It really does.
And how did you develop that leadership style?
Through the founder of Reaching Higher, Mark Hobbs. Just a great guy, and just trusted me when I didn't have the tools or the experience to be trusted, and supported me when I got it wrong. I think, the real strength of leadership is just choosing what type of leader you want to be. And every day you have to, and I say this to the team, you've got to choose. You know, you can be a leader who cares or you can be a leader who doesn't care. You can be effective in both areas, but it will take from you in a different way, you know. And I think being a leader that cares is almost certainly more draining, you know, than being a leader that doesn't, because you learn how to kind of block it out. And I Reaching Higher within myself, I've always wanted to be a leader that cares. I think everyone comes with their personal scenarios and no one comes from a bed of roses in that sense. And we've got to learn to kind of work with the cards that we've been dealt with to ensure that we can influence to the best of our ability and remain effective. But I think you can do it in a caring way, whether it's communicating great messages or difficult messages. I think it can come from a real place. And it's easier said than done. And, you know, we have to be bold and brave enough to make mistakes. But as I've got older, I think I've learned to kind of slowly distance myself from that to find my own style of leadership. And I think that's the next transition of leadership that I've had to kind of learn, which can be quite lonely. But I think learning from other great leaders, a lot of which I've encountered through the Rank Network actually, has been incredibly helpful.
And as a caring leader, what would you like to build on next?
That's a great question. As a caring leader, I'd like to build on excellence within the sector. You know, I think we're in a sector that, because it is focused on charity and the concept of charity, we think we can cut corners, or we try to cut corners and make it easy when some things are just difficult. And so I'm really keen to, raise levels of accountability and excellence in the sector, integrity from a grassroots perspective, so that in 50 years' time, we're not looking at another set of grassroots organisations and saying bye to the old ones. We're looking at those same grassroots organisations that are now helping the new ones coming through, and we're promoting more sustainability across the sector. So that's my hope, is to build sustainability and to increase levels of excellence across the sector, whether that's spaces of leadership, sustainability, organisational structure, organisational culture. Like, I'm really passionate about those things.
Great, thank you. And Alfie, you've transitioned from working side by side with the team to leading the team.
Yeah.
How has that experience been for you?
It's been very interesting. Kind of gives you like a relational aspect to your role and what you're doing. And then when you start leading the team, you start seeing things from another lens, and you're sharing different problems now. It's one of them things, it's the first time I've done it. You know what I mean? So with that, there's a level of grace, but also there's a level of expectation, because you're there for a reason. I mean, I'm not just leading from the front, I'd like to lead from the back as well, and both sides, and have that trust from the team.
Great. And some of the challenges that you've maybe faced moving into that leadership role, how have you overcome them? Any tips?
So I think before, when I used to look at work, I used to look at the 9 to 5, and I look at it from 5 to 9. So what am I doing in them gaps? What am I doing in them spaces to make myself better? But also, if something's gone wrong, or if I'm finding something challenging, emotionally difficult to regulate, where would I go and offload? What would I channel it into? And that's probably been the main thing that I found. I kind of fell in love with the gym. I fell in love with training. I fell in love with like Muay Thai combat sort of training, just because of the discipline, the emotional regulation that it offers is none like I've ever experienced. So I've tried to be very intentional about what I'm doing outside of work, discovering, like reading new books and understanding, and meeting up with the likes of Jordan and the people that I look up to. Of how did you do this? How did you do that? What's the best? I've got this problem, and instead of trying to take on the world and deal with it myself, which is something I've been guilty of doing before, because it's pride. But how can I look out to my network and get that insight and wisdom from other people that have experienced the thing already? So that's been very helpful.
So, Jordan, what have you been most impressed with as you've watched Alfie's leadership journey unfold?
You know what? I've been most impressed with Alfie's courage. Alfie's journey hasn't been straightforward, and he's had to deal with plenty of setbacks. And I think Alfie's courage in tolerating certain things and owning certain things has been his biggest strength to date, I think, because it's helped him push into being more of an authentic leader.
And Alfie, who have been some of the go-to people that have supported you on your journey, that you go to for advice and indeed inspiration?
The first one is God, if I'm really honest. The Bible has got the amount of wisdom in that book, and the amount of kind of direction. I get a lot of strength from the Bible. Outside of that, people, going to Jordan has probably been like my main point of contact, especially with leadership, because it's been the one that's most relational for me. Of like, Jordan's gone through the process of service user, youth work, like really gone through every single step and every single process, and he's currently in rooms now where he's half of the age of most of the people in the room, and the distance travelled is, as I said, exceptional. So yeah, the people around me, I've got fantastic people around me that want the best for me, but I've also applied the things that they're saying.
And Jordan, any go-to people that provide that inspiration for you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I guess to steal Alfie's first point, certainly my faith is my go-to, and going to God. In the day-to-day, I have a lot of incredible mentors in my life, and I'm able to kind of bounce off of those people and similar to what Alfie said, just learn from their lived experience and just ask the question, like, how did you do that? And just being vulnerable in that space and being brave enough to say, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And if I get it wrong, I get it wrong. And if I don't get it wrong, then I don't. And I'm really chuffed with that.
And what gems of wisdom have stayed with you?
Being brave enough to fail, and if we're going to fail, I want to fail big. I want to, I don't want to fail small. I want to fail having a really good go at something. And then recognizing that when we do fail, that's when the richest learning takes place. Another gem I would say is craving critical feedback. Appreciating that feedback as in its own right is incredibly valuable, and learning to take that and learning to not take feedback personally, is another gem for me. And then the last gem I would say is be yourself. Be yourself. Don't try to be who you're not. And I don't mean that we don't change and evolve in terms of some of our behaviours, but remember your values, stay true to your values.
You talked earlier about the sector in 50 years' time. What would you like to see more of in the next 5 years in the social sector?
I would like to see funders be more innovative in what long-term funding looks like for organisations, and place more realistic expectations on those organisations. There's so many great organisations that have now ceased to exist because, yes, they were doing great work, but they weren't thinking about that sustainability, or, they were going from one funding invoice to another funding invoice, and, not developing their reserves and not thinking about those things in that way. And I think funders can really play a significant role in supporting those grassroots organisations and managing the expectation of the outcomes. And I think there's a duty of call for grassroots organisations to improve how it monitors and evaluates and demonstrates the need better, so that we're not shape-shifted to funding agendas, and that we begin to shape-shift where the needs are, and not rely on those kind of wholesale massive statistics that are not always accurate or contextual to certain areas.
Yeah, great. And Alfie, what would you like to see in the social sector in the next few years?
Sometimes the charity sector, we're not, diligent with finances, we're not diligent with our processes in the charity sector, but that's not the case. So definitely raising that side of it and treating it like there's no difference, charity, corporate, whatever, it doesn't matter. If we're on a mission to do the thing properly. So yeah, definitely raising that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Thanks for listening to The Ripple Effect, brought to you by the Rank Foundation and Purposeful Marketing. This episode featured Jordan Ignatius, the Managing Director of Reaching Higher, and Alfie Dance Laing, who is the sports lead at Reaching Higher. Alfie will also play a leading role at this year's Rank Conference, so look out for him on the 12th of November. The producers were Cass Denton, alongside Michaela Carmichael and James Shield, courtesy of the Feast Collective. Tune into The Ripple Effect.